Shalom.
Because my Rebbe, Rabbi Chaim Kramer, he asked me to start off, so I don't have a choice. No, I'll pass on that. Don't worry. It looks to me, thank you, that most of the Olam look like you're already interested in Breslov, so I really don't think I have that much to share with you. If I'm understanding correctly, tonight is Chizuk on the inyan of going for Rosh Hashana. Is that right? So, right.
Maybe you should read to the Bible. Maybe you should talk to the wife.
So I think
maybe the husband should talk to their wives. Yeah, maybe that would work better.
That's it. You read to the Bible.
Yeah.
So
Even Holman agreed to that.
Menachem wants a besa. You tell her.
And look where that
So I was walking back to Rabbi Kramer's apartment after Night Seder about 46 years ago, 1977, 1978. I'm not that great with math. I failed so many times I can't even count. So I remember asking, I was a bacher, I wanted to go to Mohaarn. And my Rebbe arranged it. I went with Yossi, forgotten his last name. Okay.
It'll come to me.
Yeah. So I'm in good company. So Amsel, thank you. That was I think 1979, and it was under communist Russia. I'm not sure if I really understood what I was doing. I hadn't read that much, hadn't learned that much, but I remember walking home at nights, and Rabbi Kramer, who whenever I asked him a question in the best medrash, would never answer me straight away. He would walk me over to the Sfarim shelves. He would open up a Gemara, sometimes a Shulchan Aruch, sometimes a medrash. Once in a while went to Sifriya and he pulled out a Zaya, and he would learn the answer with me inside. And that always had a deep impression on me. And there were many times on the way home, and I was like completely green, that I kept hearing this name Rabbeinu Zal, and I assumed this must be, I don't know, maybe the brother of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, or a different Tana that I hadn't come across yet, because even though I became from at 11, I didn't start going to yeshiva till I was 17. So here I am, really raw, but after a while, it became clear to me. And so pretty much all of my shaykhs to Breslov came through my Rebbe. And the first time I met your father-in-law, Rabbi Rosenfeld, alav shalom, you invited me to come for Suda Shlishes. So I arrived there a little bit early, and I saw someone with a short jacket, very short beard, standing on the balcony. So I figured this must be the shamash to Rabbi Rosenfeld. And I was surprised that when the shamash sat at the head and began saying Torah, and Rabbi Rosenfeld wasn't there, it occurred to me that this was Rabbi Rosenfeld. We used to listen, a few of us used to come Motzi Shabbos and listen to tapes on Ein Yaakov. So this was not part of my notes, but over the years, I haven't done as many trips as my Rebbe. I don't know if I can ever manage to catch up, because I know you've done over 200 trips, is that right? This year, Be'ezvar Hashem, will be, I think, my 38th or 39th, I'm not sure. I managed to make every single Rosh Hashana except for COVID. I managed to make 9/11, I think within 20 minutes of Shkia. I had 4 different flights to get to Mohaarn for COVID. Every single one fell through till the last minute. But I did make the effort. The first, I think, about 23 times that I went to Mohaarn for Rosh Hashana, I never went once with permission from my wife. That was not easy. It was a lot harder when I came back.
And she let you live?
No, I survived. So, but it's very interesting, and this is not also part of my notes, but I'm going to tell it to you. The last few years, my wife became a real staunch Breslover. And when you ask her why, I thought it was just going to be, this is a really short-lived phase, but it didn't stop. And now she's very happy I'm going for Rosh Hashanah. The only thing she's got a bit of a difficulty with is when people say, "Where's your husband?" And she'll say he went to Mohaarn for Rosh Hashanah, which she had no problem saying till now. But people are going to say, "What? There's a war." So that part she feels a little bit less comfortable about, because she doesn't really believe there's a war anywhere close to Mohaarn, which actually is the truth. And I'm not even sure to what extent there really is a war. But the real war is taking place between my ears. And that's the real war I have to be focused on. And if there's a tzaddik who says that he's going to help me in that war, I definitely want that type of artillery or that type of general on my side. The reason she told me she's really sold on Breslov, it began with Rabbi Greenbaum's book, The Essential of Nachman. But after that, it started to occur to her that every single Jew that she was meeting, who came like to work in her house, did work or whatever, who'd been off the derech and came back, whether it was a Tuna Beigel or a Litvischer kid, I would say if it was 9 times out of 10, it's probably not accurate. It's probably like 98 times out of 100. The only thing that made sense to come back to was what Rabbi Nachman was offering. And that's a very interesting thing to explore, because nobody in this room has a single parent or grandparent or great-grandparent who met Rav Nachman of Breslov. So how does one person who actually is quoted saying in Chaim Run, I think it's in Shin Lamates, I just remember that because it reminds me of Shlita, the word Shlita, where he basically claims that the whole world will become Breslov Hasidim. And it's making sense to me, because here you have one individual who has touched on literally every area of life, and he spoke about it decades before the Litvischer world was even possibly had a Havamina. No means as a put down, it's just they weren't ripe. They were not willing to talk about Tikkun Bris. They're not willing to talk about the possibility that young men learning in yeshiva could actually have other tivas or even addictions that no one really wants to talk about. And Rabbeinu Zal was not only open about it, he would offer a solution. Here we have a towering tzaddik who made such extraordinary claims. They are off the charts in terms of, you start putting them together. I can pull you out of Gehenna. That's not news to us. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai made similar claims. David HaMelech, Gemara and Saita, tells us he was able and did do the same thing for his son Avshalom. And that was pretty amazing, because that's the father for his kid, his own son, who wasn't the biggest tzaddik, who would have been quite happy to have knocked his father off or have others knock him off. And yet Rabbeinu Zal is saying, I can do that after I leave this world. I can do that for you, and you don't have to be my son. Rabbeinu Zal made some claims that are beyond, especially Rosh Hashanah. That's probably the biggest of them all, because he admits that that's a gift that Hashem gave him, that he understands what Rosh Hashanah is. I don't know how to say what Rosh Hashanah is in the mind of Rabbeinu Zal, but for the fact that he's saying, if you come for Rosh Hashanah, and this has helped me in some very, very difficult moments, the whole of the rest of the year, you have every reason to be besimcha, no matter what happens, just for the fact that you came to me for Rosh Hashanah, which means he is taking care of you for at least that year. He made extraordinary claims that he has a deal with Hashem, that none of his Hasidim will be taken before their time. No one who is really Makusha to the Tzaddik will leave here without having finished what they have to do. That is extraordinary. The fact that he offers that there's such a thing as a Tikkun Klali, 10 specific psalms, that is a spiritual remedy for Mikra Laila, that's extraordinary. The fact that he claims that Adam Rishon and all the tzaddikim in all generations were working to identify what is the tikkun for this, their spiritual remedy for the kilkul, the destruction caused by chilul bris. So this, you start adding these up, and then you come to putting his spiders back on the map. Nekudas tovos, finding the good in anything, everything, including oneself. You start putting them all together. Simcha, Hispaidas, Nekudas tovos, Rosh Hashana, Tikkun Klali. And you start asking yourself, well, let's just look around and see if anyone's taking this seriously, and if they are, how is it affecting them? Is it giving them an injection, at least in the moments that they are Makusha, or reading the Svarim, or having Sichas Chaverim, talking to their friends, and getting Chizuk? Is this really working for them? And when you start to notice Uman Rosh Hashanah, the first time I went, I think it was the second Rosh Hashanah, I missed the very first one, which was in extraordinarily difficult conditions as far as everyone described to me. But I think there were about 400, maybe 600 people, 1990.
1988, there were 250.
So it's 1989. We had about
1989, there were about 1,000.
Oh, we had 1,000 already? So I remember we had about 15 people in the Sephardi minyan. And since then, you can't count how many Sephardi minyanim there are, and even less able are you to count how many Sephardim are in each minyan. You're talking about thousands. It's mind-boggling, the attraction that this one human being has had on generations that never knew and never saw and never heard, never saw his face, never heard a word from his mouth. However, the Sfarim speak for themselves. And when people immerse themselves in the Sfarim, they start to sense, I can change. The only person I was created to change. And Rabbeinu Zal is quoted in Sichas Saran. Thank you so much. L'chaim. Chaim is plural, so it means to lives, this world and the next. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Thank you. Rabbeinu Zal's quoted in Chaim Ran in 262, where he says, when you add it all up, there really is no middle negotiation. There's no compromise here. Either I'm the tzaddik MS, I'm the real tzaddik that I'm claiming to be, or I'm what my detractors claim. And then you're left asking, okay, so how do I figure this out? So you can meet a Breslov and talk to them. And in my experience, when I first came across Rabbi Kramer and then Rabbi Roosevelt, Alav Shalom, Sol Goldman, these were some of the people that came into contact with, and you start to see a pattern. You see something that's a very, very interesting profile. Not very interested in this world, very interested in the next, very interested in learning everything from the beginning to end and start again. And you start to get this sense of, oh, here's someone who wants to know everything Hashem ever said. Bavli, Ushalmi, Tosefta, Sifra, Sifri, Shulchan Aruch, Rambam, etc. And that's what Rabbeinu Zal was about. And if someone came to him as they would and say, I want to learn, but I can't. So, and Rabbeinu Zal had told him, learn, and Hashem will enter your mind through the learning. And he would say, I can't learn. So then daven that you should be able to learn. And I thought about it. It occurred to me, who was Rabbeinu Zal's Rebbe? And if I'm not mistaken, it was a Kodesh Baruch Hu, because Rabbeinu Zal knew that Ata Chainen La Adam. das. It's nobody else. Hamelamed, a melamed, well, unfortunately we translate as teacher, but you check out the word Yoilid Hacham in Mishlei, Perek Chaf Gimel, Pasuk Chaf Daled. Actually, it's also in Chaf Hey. But look at the Metzudas there. He says, a melamed is Lashon Moilid Chachma Belev HaTalmid. The melamed is someone who's causing the birth of wisdom in the mind of the student. So that means to say, when you and I admit that the greatest Rebbe you and I ever had was actually the person, I'm not allowed to say person, it's who we said every single morning, including this morning, we blessed him and we said, Baruch atah Hashem ha-melamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. If I'm able to learn anything, it's true I have an Aleph-based Rebbe, a Chumash Rebbe, Mishnayos Rebbe, but who is the one who's opening my mind so that I'm able to learn? And so Rabbeinu Zal could actually say, oh, you don't know how to learn? No problem. Ask Hashem, please, help me conquer Aleph base, help me conquer Nekudas, help me conquer blending, help me conquer Shroshim, prefix, suffixes, help me conquer Chumash, help me conquer Mishnayos. And that's what Rav Nachman said of himself. He struggled with Chumash, he struggled with Mishnayos, and he begged and begged, please, Rebbeinu Shalom, open my mind. And when you look through Likutey Mohaarn, you start to realize it's not humanly possible in a lifetime to simply know all this information and make the connections he's making. It's simply impossible. There's not enough years in your life, let alone to be around for 38 and a half years. It makes no sense. Well, it doesn't have to make sense, because if the reality is Hashem is the one who opens our mind, then there's no questions, because you are created B'Tselem, Elokim. Tselem means a reflection. Elokim literally means power of all powers. Hashem has no limit to his powers, and you and I are a reflection of that, in the sense that there's no limit to how much the mind can dig into Avas Hashem, Avas Yisrael, Avas Chaim, Simchas Chaim. There's no end, there's no limit. But what's the connector? Oh, it's Hispaidus. Oh, it's a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So I would have to say that everybody has the decision to make. Is Rav Nachman the tzaddik he claims to be, or not? And I think the answer is very simple. Ta'amu ur'u. Taste it yourself and see for yourself. I'm speaking to the choir here. I'm preaching to the choir. But I will say that Rosh Hashana is, to my simple understanding, and I've heard from many others, it's a glimpse of what it will look like when Mashiach comes, because every imaginable Jew from the entire spectrum is there, with every imaginable hairstyle or no hairstyle, every type of Hasidus. I'm not sure. I think the only minyan that may not yet be there is the Yekisha minyan. I'm not sure. But there's several Teimani minyanim and a number of Lubavitch minyanim. There's an appeal, there's an attraction, and you have to ask yourself a very simple question. How does this one person who nobody in our lifetime, our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents' lifetime, ever met, a magnet of this magnitude that's able to pull together every Jew of every walk of life and reach out to many thousands of non-Jews who are converting because of what they're hearing from Rav Nachman? I think of Rabbi Kramer's Talmud, Gedaliahu Fenster. Here's someone who never went to yeshiva, but sat and learnt a good few hours every week consistently the English translation with the footnotes that Rabbi Kramer is responsible for. And here's someone who is a fountain, not just of knowledge, a fountain of constant inspiration and clarity and insight on a daily basis, with over 50,000 people listening. And there's got to be something to that, because here's someone who's not typically a Yodea Sefer, and yet Rabbeinu Zal did exactly what he promised to do. You immerse yourself in my Sefer, Likutey Mohaarn, I will open up the pathways of your mind, and you'll be able to see a different world. I close what I think is possibly one of the meanings of Nekudas Tovos, that thanks to what we know in this physical world, it's not only a dimyon, an olam hasheker, but scientifically it's a dimyon. Because if you have a physicist standing right here, and I say, isn't this a nice solid plastic table, or a solid plastic here, or solid wood, or a granite countertop in the kitchen, and he'll say, not really, it's 99.999, you've got to go 12 spaces to get to 13th space to get to a 1. It's 99.999 to get to 0. 99.999% empty space. If you want to know how much is physical matter, it's 0.00. Now you go 13 spaces to get to a 1. That's how much physical matter it is. And that physical matter is actually made up of only atoms with their protons and neutrons and electrons. And now, thanks to liberals, we now have morons. Why are you laughing? Oh, you thought I was joking. Okay, fine, sorry. So we know that the physical universe is made up of this little atom, and most of it, the nucleus with the protons and the neutrons, is actually energy that's moving so fast you can't even quantify it, which means it's more energy than physical matter, and that's what's been called 0.00000, 13 spaces later, 1. This world is such an incredible dimyon, and Rabbeinu Zal wants us to understand that everything you and I look at is Hashem surfacing in our lives in this moment. The people we interface with. If we're sitting on a chair, the plastic comes from the ground. The ground is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're just breathing in air, or you're taking in water. The water goes into the ground. The ground gives you seeds which deepen their roots and shoot out a trunk, becomes a tree with fruit bearing, and all that from a single seed. So Rabbeinu Zal said you can find Hashem everywhere all the time. That's why Yush is a misunderstanding of reality. It simply doesn't exist because I'm one thought away from remembering Hashem. And I close, and I do really mean it, and that is, I'm very, very far away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I know it, and yet I also know He's extremely close to me. I'm very far because so much of my day I'm distracted, and I'm not thinking about Hashem. But I know I'm very, very, He's very close to me because I'm one thought away. One hirur away. As he brings in Nun Hey, in Tinyana, you're always one thought away. Just move the thought, one thought away from moving the reins of a horse, as the marshal he gives, always one thought away from reconnecting to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I believe that's part of why there's such a powerful attraction, that Rosh Hashana is our tikkun moving forward, and that's because we will be zeicha to be together this Rosh Hashana in Uman. Amen.
Amen. As we heard from Rabbi Rietti, there's nothing really for me to add. So we can all say Krishna Lamita and go to sleep. Right? Yes, he's only one thought away. I thought maybe to learn a little bit of the lesson that the Rebbe speaks about Chodesh Elul, month of Elul. Give a very short synopsis of it, and the Edward Noson's Diburim. The lesson starts off, lesson 6, person has to minimize his own honor and maximize the honor of Hashem. Okay? If you minimize your honor, you can get to the maximum honor of Hashem. And then you really are part of that honor, because that honor is called tshuva. All right? And the Rebbe says, how do you get that honor? You remain silent in the face of a humiliation. Somebody will embarrass you. What are you going to Uman for? What's going to be here? What's this? What's that? The Rebbe says, Yishma b'zyono, listen to your humiliation and remain silent. Okay? Now the Rebbe goes on to explain a number of ideas that are involved with Kabbalah. We're not going to expand on the Kabbalah. We'll just say a few things here. Why is it so important to listen to the humiliation and remain silent? Because when that happens, your blood rushes through your body. Your face turns red, and then afterwards, it turns white. Right? It's a physical thing that happens when a person is embarrassed. Right? What is this all about? It's the revelation of Hashem within you whenever you try to return to Hashem. How? There's a name of Hashem that's called Ekia. Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey. Rosh Rabbeinu was told, what name should I tell the Jews when they're in Mitzrayim? Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. Okay. Eli Ehyeh, the Arizal says, when Hashem is hidden, it's something that's called Acharayim. It's like you have to go backwards and look. So the Acharayim means to spell out the name Aleph, which has a numerical value of 1. Hey has a numerical value of 6. Hey Aleph. With 1 before is 7. Then you go back and you start again. Aleph, Hey, and Yud. Right? So now you have 10, 17. And then you have the letter Hey again, is 23. Okay? That's the name Ekia. Together with the actual name itself, 21, adds up to how much? 23 and 21. This is, the calculus, Huh?
Take the vote.
Huh? I can't hear you.
He said Kriyishma Amita.
So how much is it? 44. What's the word for blood in Hebrew? Dam. Dam is Daled and Mem is 44. So that Hashem is hidden in our blood system every single moment, every single second. Hashem is there for us. What then? You got to bring it out. If a person gets embarrassed and he remains silent because he wants to do tshuva and come close to Hashem, so then Hashem is revealing himself through that blood system, and then he becomes pure. It was red, now it turns white. The person becomes pure, right? If a person thinks of his own ego, then already it doesn't work. And so the Rebbe calls this process tshuva. Tshuva. But then he says, you should know, the Pasuk says in Mishlei, Mi yoima zikisi libi tiharti mechatosi. Who could say that I purified my heart? When a person, it's almost Yom Kippur, almost Slichas actually, right? Are we going to say Hashamnu, Bagamnu, Gozalnu, right? Are you really purifying yourself? I did it, it'll never happen again. Is that what happens when you start doing tshuva? Not really, right? So what happens, the Rebbe says you have to do tshuva upon tshuva. You have to do tshuva al tshuva, right? Okay? So when you do tshuva al tshuva, then you merit to real tshuva, and then you merit to the greatness of Shabbos, because the Pasuk says in Nitzavim, V'shavta ad Hashem Melikecha, V'shavta, your return, is the same letters as Shabbos. So that you be merit to the concept of Shabbos, which is the world to come. A good deal, right? Yeah. So far, so good. We're together with this? Okay. It's after Krishma, but okay. Point is that Reb Nosson picks up on this, and he says that tshuva al tshuva, right? The Rebbe, I left out a point. The Rebbe, towards the middle of the lesson, says all this is alluded to in the letter Aleph. Aleph has an upper point. It has a vav in the middle, connecting point, and then it has a lower point. That's how the Aleph is written. Upper point, lower point, and a vav in the middle connecting. All this is alluded to in the Aleph. Right? Aleph is the first step that everyone takes, or you're supposed to take anyway. Right? And you have this Aleph, the Nekuda Ha'ayoina, as Rabbi Yonason said, is the tzaddik. The Nekuda HaTachtoina, the lower, is the Talmud. And you have to have some kind of a conduit to bring the Kedusha of the tzaddik down to the level of the Talmud. Okay, so that's what the letter Aleph stands for. A person merits to do tshuva, he becomes an Adam, he becomes a mensch. Why? Because he's created, he's accepted the words of the tzaddik, he has built the Aleph, and he adds it to his blood, dam, so now it becomes Adam. He becomes now a mensch. Right? That's how we become, we do tshuva. Yeah. Okay, this is the essence of the lesson of the Likutey Mohaarn. Rabbi Nosson says, you'll notice there are 3 points in the Aleph. An upper, a lower, and the middle point. The upper point, the lower point, and the middle kav, are 3 different concepts. There are 3 weeks, for example, between Shavuos of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, right? There are many other things in Yiddishkeit, but the main thing the Rebbe said is that wherever a Rebbe and a Talmud get together, those two, it forms that connection, that conduit for us to receive. When Rebbe speaks about Rosh Hashana, he says, I know what Rosh Hashana is, and he explained it. Rosh Hashana is the machshava, it's the thought. Rebbe said, don't talk too much on Rosh Hashana, because it's a day of thought, not a day of speech. We daven, we say what we have to say, but it's thought that counts. You have to think very good thoughts. The Sicha Sarani says this. 24, right? Okay. And then it's a machshava. Rosh Hashanah, what is it about? Whatever is going to happen to you, we had it in Parshas Eikev, Tomed Eini Hashem Elokecha Bo Mereishis Hashana, from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. The Gemara says, Rashi brings it there, on Rosh Hashanah it's written down what's going to happen the last day of the year. I remember when I was in yeshiva, it was the 29th of Elul, there was a bus accident and 2 yeshiva boys were killed. My Rosh Yeshiva said, remember, that happened last Rosh Hashanah. They were dead from last Rosh Hashanah, because that's when the Gzeira went out. All right, so we have to understand that Mereishis Hashanah, whatever's going to happen during the year, is written down on Rosh Hashanah. I've always said this, not in jest, but in reality. I says, people ask me, why Rosh Hashanah? I said, it's not like Pesach, Shavuos, so it's not a family holiday. It's a day of judgment. You're on trial for nothing else than your life, right? Who do you want standing next to you when you're on trial before the judge? Your wife or your lawyer, right? Okay, so that's why we go to the Tzaddik Rosh Hashanah. You have an advocate on high. The Rebbe says there are things I can do on Rosh Hashanah that I can't do during the year. Why not? Because Rosh Hashanah is when the judgment is mitigated. That's when it's set in motion, right? And like a cancer, chas v'sholem, if you have a cancer, when you find it when it's first starting to grow, you cut it out, excise it, and then there's no problem. You let it fester and grow, then it becomes a very big problem. It's the same thing with a person, Rosh Hashana. The Gzeiros come out on Rosh Hashana. It's the Yom Adin. The Yom Adin for the entire year. Reb Menachem then says, well, that's the case. Rosh Hashanah is the day of tshuva. And we're all human, and who can say he did tshuva the right way? So therefore Hashem gave us Aseret Shemei Tshuva, and you have Yom Kippur, a day of tshuva. That's the tshuva al tshuva. That's the tshuva on top of the tshuva. So you start with Rosh Hashanah, but start with Rosh Hashanah. And that's why it's important to be by the tzaddik. The tzaddik teaches you and shows you the paths of tshuva. But funny kind of thing, the whole Aseret Shemei Tshuva, Kosveinu l'chaim, Uchsoiv l'chaim tovim, comes Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, the last minutes on Yom Kippur, Achsoim l'chaim tovim kol b'nei v'yisech. Seal it. Seal it. In this lesson, Rabbi Nachman explains, for a person to do tshuva, you have to have a certain amount of intelligence. Bekias, it's called. You have to be boki. You have to be boki b'halacha and boki b'rotzoi, boki b'shoif. You have to be boki in halacha, how to go up to Hashem, and you have to know when things work against you, how to be still, pull back a little bit. You have to know when to put this power, when to use this energy, when to use the negative energy. You have to know that. Yerizal explains that the month of Elul is encompassed in the Posik Hanoisein Bayom Derech, that Hashem puts a path in the sea. He puts a path that people could walk, right? So that derech is 224. Daled, Resh, Chav, 224. Boki is how much? To be Boki. Beis Yud Kuf is 112. 112 times 2, 224. So the derech HaTshuva comes about how we learn to go up and to go back. How we fall down, we're able to control ourselves. How to go forward, propel ourselves with a greater level of tshuva. That's the derech, right? So the chosim that's written on Yom Kippur, right? The chosem is 454, which is twice which mistake did I made? Yeah, it's 448, which is twice derech 224, right? And the vav is that connecting, that conduit that connects us with the upper point, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Okay, so far clear, right? We're all fogged out, right? Okay, right. Reb Menachem goes further and he asks the question: Hashana Rabbah is called the chosim b'toy chosim. The seal that is made on Yom Kippur is not finalized until Hashana Rabbah.
What about Hanukkah?
Huh?
What about Hanukkah? Also a Hasidim,
It's sealed on Hashana Rabbah. You got a chance to do tshuva till Shos Hanukkah. But the seal is Hashana. That's when the angels are given their petek, Piska Tova, have a good kvittel, right? Right. That's when they're given the kvittel, go out and do whatever damage you can, which is why the UN always meets around Hashana Rabbah, right? All the conflagration against Klal Yisrael, it always happens then, because that's the time of year, all right? But whatever the case is, I mean, I know we're speaking a little bit, and I myself am a little bit fogged out, and I just came today from Eretz Yisrael. So whatever the case is, you need the chosim b'toy chosim because there's always an extra level of tshuva that you can do. So that even Hashana Rabbah, but how do you get to Hashana Rabbah? Well, did you ever say Hoshainus and Sukkot? Hoshana, what's Hoshana? What's the Na? Nun Aleph? 51 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Hashana Rabbah. 51 days. Okay? And Reb Nosson says, amazing thing. He says, what do we say, Hoshana? Save us, help us. He says, the upper point of the Aleph is the tzaddik, right? The lower point of the tzaddik is the Talmud, Yehoshua, right? Yehoshua was so called because Rashi brings, Ko Yoshiacho Meyatzas Meraglim. Hashem should save you. So that what we are doing the whole time from Rosh Chodesh Elul till Hashana Rabbah, we're trying to arouse that nekuda of Talmud, of the student, to be able to receive from the tzaddik by screaming Hoshana, Hoshana. That's what we do during Sukkot. Okay? So this is the lesson that I hope will help bring people to understand the power of tshuva, what you're capable of achieving when you attach yourself to the tzaddik, and when you realize the koyach of the tzaddik to help you, even if you're on the lowest level, that lower nekuda, that bottom point. You reached bottom point. You've reached the lowest point of your life, right? You're about to give up. Don't give up. Yeshua was there all the time, but he never moved away from Moshe Rabbeinu's tent, right? He never moved away from it. Lo yomish mitoich ha'oil. He always was there. Rabbeinu Zal calls that vav, that like an ohel, like a tent where the Rebbe and the Talmud could meet, right? Yeshua never left that oil. We have to learn to understand the koyach of a tzaddik, to understand the power that Rabbi Nachman could bring to us, and he could mitigate the decrees on Rosh Hashana. That's what it's all about, mitigation of decrees, so that Be'ezah Hashem will all be zoichet to have a very sweet year. Yodeson mentioned earlier Gedalia Fenster, about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. He has a place called Recovery, or Evolutions. It's for recovery from addicts, from addictions, right? He pushed me to write the book,
Wow.
12 steps, about 12 steps. So about 20 years ago, it was very big. It was always advertised, 12 steps and whatnot. And I thought, I don't know what these 12 steps are, but I can write a book, the 13th step, take all the 12 steps, show it how it is Rabbi Nachman, and then show you how Rabbi Nachman can go further than that. Except that someone who was in addiction told me when you use the word 13th step, it goes beyond what they want and it doesn't help them. So I couldn't use that name. So Gedalia pushed me to write this book. It just came off the press this week, Recovery and Discovery. What I did with it was I took the 12 steps. In order to do it, I had to read the book Alcoholics Anonymous, because I have to, what are the 12 steps, right? I have no idea. I never read the book in my life. No idea. And as I read the book, I found Rabbi Nachman on every page. Every page I could point out to you, chapter, verse, of where the Rebbe or Reb Nosson said this. Okay. So when he told me about the book, I never got around to doing it, but he pushed me, so I made the book. So I have three parts to this book. One, what went wrong, why we have addictions. All right, that's a simple thing. We're human beings, we have the Yetzer Hara. The second part of the book is the 12 steps. Goes through all the 12 steps as they delineated in their book, but I explained it only according to Rabbi Menachem. So if anyone here has an addiction, right, to schnapps or to, what do they call it, substance abuse, right, or gambling, or sex, or
Food.
atheism, huh? Food, yeah, it's in the book. So what I did was take the Rebbe's story of the master of prayer. The Rebbe in that story talks about 10 different groups. One group wanted honor. One group considered murder the tachlus. Right? Take a look at the Arabs today. One group considered wisdom, university. Could you go through America without being a student in university? Right? Could you? Doesn't matter the student loan that you have to take out to support it, whatever, the hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you got to be smart. What do you got to be smart from? There's a Black history, there's leisure studies, how to go on vacation, and who knows how many other different qualified and approved for credits that you get when you go to college, right? Then you have entertainment. Always be happy, right? How many people spend a day by the computer, right? Whatever. And then you have strength. You're a mighty warrior. You build a body. The body. Look at the amount of bodybuilding organizations they have today. Whatever, with LA Fitness and stuff like that, right? Then you have speech. Speech. Shakespeare was the bard, right? But then you have speech. They have what they call today the radio, or the television, or the media, right? Everyone's talking. Everyone. Look at Trump, right? Everyone's talking, doing whatever they want. But is that a tachlis? Is that a tachlis? Then there's, of course, we mentioned earlier, the three-letter word, SCX. And then you have money, right? And then also regular food or diet, right? You know how many diets there exist, right? There's hundreds of diets, right? Do this, do that, it doesn't help. America is called the land of the obese, right? So what do you have? The Rebbe said there was one group that sought the tachlis, those who daven to Hashem. Ko Yoshiyacha Meyatzas Meraglim. Those who turn to Hashem, those who ask and daven to Hashem the entire time. So I based the 12 steps on these ideas, and the third part of the book is called The Discovery, where you can look and find where your weakness is and how the Rebbe explains, like Yonason said earlier, how Rabbi Nachman gives a solution to everything that's going wrong in our lives, right? This is how you can control yourself. This is how you can take load. You can take control of your life. Hashem should help that we should do the right thing. The first right thing is to go to Rosh Hashana. That's the first right thing. The second right thing is to learn the Rebbe's Sforim and understand what the Rebbe says, how he can bring me, even me, to tshuva. I could also do tshuva. I could also, no matter how low I've fallen, Hashem is mitia by the 11 there, the Rebbe says in Chaim. Hashem is with you, alongside you, next to you. Hashem is always with you, right? A person thinks he comes close to Hashem, then he's very distant, because Hashem is infinite. What do you know about the infinite? But Hashem is always close, even in Shol Tachtius, Vatzia She'oli Neka, which is a verse in this lesson too. If I go down to Shol Tachtius, even there Hashem is with me too. So Be'ezah Hashem, we should all be zoicha to do the right thing, understand the power of Rosh Hashana. It's what energizes me for the entire year. And with it, we will all have a very happy, healthy, good health, and successful year. Amen. Any questions? Lo yabaishin lo meid.
Session is
Any
now
questions? Thank you. Questions?
I just want to repeat verbatim what you said about what I should tell my wife.
Huh?
I want to do the verbatim of what you said I should tell my wife.
What do I want next to me? My lawyer or my wife?
That's it. That's it. Very simple. You heard that, honey?
Thank you. Thank you.